And as we had earlier mentioned, we have with us the Kenya Revenue Authority's Chief Manager of Taxpayers Service, Judy Njagi, to help us understand issues around, of course, filing of returns ahead of the 30th June deadline. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Maybe we start with filing of returns, the penalties that was introduced sometime last year. Help us understand what would happen in case I don't file my returns in time.
Well, if you don't file your return on time, there is a penalty of 20,000. That's a heavy penalty for an individual like you. So my call is that file as early as now. Return filing starts as early as January of every year. So we are now getting to the end of the period, which is 30th June. But you don't have to wait until the 30th June. File now.
File now.
Yes.
I mean, of course, 20,000 is a lot of money for someone like me, as you had earlier indicated.
Yes.
But at times there are technical issues in terms of maybe filing returns, especially at the iTax system. Maybe why would I be penalized for something that would not entirely be my fault at times?
If it's clear that the reason why you didn't file is a technical hitch from our end, then that's okay, because the law allows that such penalty can be waived. And that's why we are calling, so that you get to know whether you have a challenge in the filing and visit the offices for support. So that's why we are calling now. Do not wait until end of the period to maybe get to know that there is a challenge that we need to sort.
So say maybe I did not file my returns in time and I was penalized the 20,000 shillings and I'm not able to pay. Yes, it was my fault, but I'm not in a position to pay. How would maybe KRA help me get out of this debt burden?
Okay, the tax laws allow for waiver. So all you need to do is to apply for waiver, giving us good reasons why you did not comply, because that's non-filing. It's a non-compliant state. And if the commissioner is satisfied with the justification, the penalty can be waived. Yeah.
Oh, the penalty can be waived. Of course,
yes,
that is good news.
The law allows, yeah.
That is good news for a number of people out there. Let's talk a bit about the blocking of PINs that happened last year. A number of people who did not file their returns in time or who are not consistently filing their returns have had their PINs blocked. Some of them have not yet reclaimed their PINs to this day.
Yes. For every blocked PIN, there is a story. And actually, PINs were not blocked because taxpayers didn't file. It's the story behind that PIN. We observed through our iTax system, and you're aware our iTax system is integrated with the IFMIS, the government system. We observed that there are so many transactions with the government with the PINs that are not on iTax. And any PIN that is not on iTax is actually an invalid PIN, and the reason for blocking. So we realize you individuals or companies are doing big business with the government, parastatals and any other company, but there is no declaration from their end. So we blocked in a way to call the taxpayers or the PIN owners. We can see what you are doing, but we cannot allow you to transact with a PIN that is invalid. You are aware we have a taxpayer check, a PIN checker in our system. And we actually call for any person who is giving or paying for any service to first of all check before transacting. Are you transacting with a valid PIN? Yeah, because that is why we are blocking PINs, because they are not valid.
Some people did not update their PINs after having theirs maybe blocked, as you earlier directed.
Yeah, and that's the reason we said it's actually on individual base. So as you come, we listen to your story. If there is any tax to be paid, because in most of the cases there is tax. There is the filing of returns that is not done. The taxpayer, the individual pays the tax, and we unblock the PIN. And that is happening. So it's not like an en masse activity. We blocked them, but activating is one case after the other. It's as you come to us and you give your evidence.
Then there was the issue about nil returns in the iTax system.
Yes.
some people face a bit of hurdles in the iTax system and filing their nil returns.
Yes.
How is this sorted? Or how are you sorting this problem?
Okay, there has been that challenge, and one big reason why there has to be a declaration of source of income is a way of trying to clean our data. Because you realize we have come from a manual system to the iTax now, and much of the information some of the taxpayers had given had issues. Yeah, you realize sometimes even the emails are wrong, mobile numbers or telephone contacts are wrong. So in the process of updating or giving us the source of income and also updating your status, we are cleaning our database. But we are enhancing our system, the iTax, because that has come to us. We are enhancing our system so that once you clean your data and we have the correct information about you, we will be able to allow you to file your returns automatically without having to go back to indicating your source of income every other time.
How does then maybe the law protect the taxpayer who intends to file nil returns, whose source of whose declaration is up to date,
yes,
but because of whatever reason or whatever challenges is not able to file his nil returns in time? How maybe does the law protect him from penalties imposed by the Kenya Revenue Authority?
I wouldn't want to talk about protecting a taxpayer, because right now we are saying, come now, let's check, let's look at your PIN, what is the charge, so that we sort the problem this early. But after the filing season, if one has not filed, unless there is a real good reason why they did not file, the penalty has to be imposed. But we are saying, let's not wait until after 30th June, and now we are looking at how to waive the penalties. Let's come and come now and find out if there is a problem. I may actually tell you right now, we have queues already. And to me, that's a good sign that the Kenyans are ready to file their returns. And we have received almost 900,000.
Oh.
Yeah, this early. So we are saying the Kenyans have known the goodness of coming early as opposed to waiting till the end.
So somebody who maybe was working last year and has no work this year and maybe does not have a source of income,
yeah,
but has a KRA PIN, how does he go about filing his tax returns?
They simply do the nil return, because what happens is that the commissioner needs to know. Last year you are working, you had earned some income. This year you don't have. Without a return, the commissioner wouldn't know that change. So the reason why the nil return has to be filed, and that's a self-declaration. We allow taxpayers to assess themselves. So the assessment may be zero, assessment may be now what you have earned. And it's not just employment income. We also have others, individuals and taxpayers who are in other businesses. We also have landlords. So everyone, we are calling upon everyone, get to know which kind of a return. But of course, this time we are talking about the end of year return. But it's good for me to tell the public that we have many other returns. And especially now the landlords that we are following, the monthly rental income. And we realize there are so many people who are working. They are employees, yes, but they are also having rental income. They're also having other businesses. So that's, everybody need to be aware, what do you do with this other?
And then there is a certain cumbersome, of course, problem that a lot of taxpayers face.
Yes.
Their employers are paying or filing the returns every month. And then they're supposed to, again, go ahead and file their annual returns.
Yes.
I mean, some of the people are saying, you know what, why do we need to go through this hassle when the employer is indeed filing the tax return every month?
Okay, there are many ways of looking at that. And I think I've already talked about one. The employer may not know what you do after 5. You could be having, we call them side hustles, but sometimes they're actually major businesses. You could have matatus, you could have rental income, other businesses that even run when you're in the office. So the employer will pay on monthly basis the pay that is deducted. But at the end of the year, we expect the employee to also declare the other sources of income. And that's why it is your own responsibility, so that you tell us what else other than what the employer has told us. And also it's good to note that some employers deduct and they don't remit. So when you file your return, and you know it's a debit credit thing, when you file a return and you are offsetting payee that was paid, and when the system reconciles the two pins, we see the employer did not remit. Yes, they deducted, but did not remit. So we are able to know. So it's also a way of policing.
But similar thing really exists where maybe employees are paying up their taxes in time, but then the employer is not remitting it. And then the penalty still goes back to the employee and the taxpayer.
The penalty for pay goes to the employer because the obligation to deduct is on the employer. So we actually do not penalize the employee, unless we don't, punish the employee for pay that is not paid. And maybe it's also good to note that with the system, when the employee is filing through iTax, if the employer has gaps of filing, maybe the employer paid but did not file, so we are not able to see the tax that the employer is claiming had been paid, because that reconciliation it's until a return is done that the payment is pegged to the return, and then we are able to see that that employee is cleared. So as long as the employer has not filed, we will give what we call default notice to the employee to notify him, your employer, there is some hitch. Could you go and find out? So we encourage all the employers to ensure that all the monthly payees are filed on their due dates. And actually the fine is also there, and it's hefty. Yeah.
Maybe then you tell me a bit about iTax. What is iTax really? Because a number of people are asking, KRA is talking every year about iTax.
Yeah.
It's a new taxation system. What is it really?
Yeah,
and who is supposed to be on iTax?
Okay. iTax is our new online system for actually, I would say, doing business with our taxpayers and the general public. And it's the only way that the taxpayers and the public will transact with KRA. We stopped all the manual filing, you're aware? We stopped all the manual registration. Like, for example, if you want a PIN now, you will not come with manual applications and all that. You apply through our KRA iTax portal. And I'm sure we are familiar with the portal, which is, you just go to our iTax and you'll see the portal there, something like this. I don't know whether we are able to...
Maybe you'd be able to show
that
the
is
view
the face. Once you go
this.
to our iTax portal, that's what you see. If you don't have a PIN at all, it's so clear there that you should come in. It's not feasible.
Maybe we tell them about the site, really.
Yeah.
Or the view.
Yeah, through our website, www.kra.yes.
Yes.
Then iTax portal. And it gives you, there are two ways to this.
Yeah.
Or actually several, because if you have a PIN which is not on iTax, and I said those are the invalid PINs, the pins of, you know, those old cards.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you found those old cards.
Old cards, I've heard about
and
them.
some of us are comfortably keeping those old cards on safe. But the pin is invalid. So that pin has to be migrated to iTax for it to be valid. So you use you just come and update. But if you are a new taxpayer, you make sure that you use the new pin registration provision that is there. So it is for everybody, because there is no any other way that we talk with our taxpayers other than through iTax.
Maybe you tell us more a bit about the iTax, but allow me at this point to, of course, direct you to State House, where the President of Djibouti, President Ismail Gelle, is on a state visit, and we have live pictures from State House now. As you can see, President Uhuru Kenyatta is with President Ismail Omar Gelle of Djibouti, following, of course, the Ethiopian Prime Minister, who paid a visit to the country the other day, 2 days ago, to sign a number of deals, really, with the country, of course, including what a lot of people are looking up to, lapse and opening up the Kenyan North to Ethiopia. But of course, we'll be bringing you as they happen there in State House. We'll go back later and find out what agreements were signed between Kenya and Djibouti, and allow me at this point then again to return back to our conversation about iTax and solution, really. Has iTax really helped the Kenyan taxpayer in terms of maybe online transaction at the time of the digital revolution? Going online, how long does it take maybe to file your returns or to do your transactions online?
Okay, I would say we have reduced our ease of doing business. Filing a return from, like before we could use taxpayers struggling to do the manual returns and come into queue and all that. Could take days. Today you sit in your office, sit in your house or wherever you are, and do your return online. It is reduced to, I would say, seconds or minutes. But again, it depends because we use the same fiber. So it also depends. If so many of us sit and wait for the last day, obviously there we have a problem. Yeah, so the earlier the better when the system is not so much crowded.
The earlier, the better, she says. This is, of course, Judy Njagi, who is the Kenya Revenue Authority Chief Manager of Taxpayer Services. Of course, we'll be coming back after the break for more conversation about taxation and making you, the viewer, understand taxation policies around the country. We'll take a short break now. Of course, we'll be coming back with more news after the break. Welcome back to NTV. Today we are glad you are watching what is happening in and around the country in terms of course, news in business, sports, and everything else that you need to know at this hour and, of course, the next hour. But right now I was with, of course, the Kenya Revenue Authority's Chief Manager for Taxpayer Services, Judy Njagi, who was telling us and making us understand a bit about filing of tax returns and the new iTax portal that exists. And, of course, maybe, if Ms. Judy, you'd make us understand about the P9 forms that you've been pushing and saying that employers need to, of course, give it to their employees so that they can be able to be facilitated and file their returns in time. Maybe what is the P9 actually for our view at home?
Yeah, thank you for that. P9 is a summary of the tax that has been deducted from an employee. You are aware that the employer deducts on monthly basis and pays, but at the end of the year, they should be able to give each employee that summary, and that is the summary that helps the employee to file their individual returns because they are able to see how much of the pay has been deducted and paid to KRA. So we encourage every employer to release the P9 as early because we have observed that that is one thing that delays the employees from filing their returns. Yeah.
So what happens in case maybe employers do not release these P9 forms to their employees in time to file their returns?
Now that is, I would say it's beyond us, but the employer is facilitating in the delay, the filing of the returns of their own employees. But considering that filing of the end of year individual return is an employee's obligation, the employees also should ensure that they also get the details from their employers. But also we are aware that each employee receives a monthly payslip. So one is able to compute the tax paid from the payslips. But we urge the employers to actually facilitate this process by releasing that schedule early enough.
Do you want to tell us a bit about the ease of access in terms of maybe filing these returns and the various payment channels that exist?
Yeah, one of the benefits of iTax is that once a taxpayer has identified or rather has already computed the tax payable, through the system they can select as many banks. Actually, almost all the banks are linked with the iTax. So they are able to identify which is their convenient channel. We also have the M-Pesa through the mobile for those who are paying less amounts. So we have tried to enhance iTax to the convenience of every taxpayer.
Oh, so much is happening actually in the online space.
Yes.
And KRA, to an extent, has shifted their services to online to allow people file their returns and, of course, pay up to what is owed to them. But there is the issue about leakages and KRA, over time, failing to meet the targets that are set by the National Treasury in terms of tax collection. Maybe a broad conversation around how is KRA dealing with these tax leakages to of course, ramp up the revenue collection?
Yeah, I would say like one issue that you brought up, the issue of deactivating pins is actually to curb leakage. As I said, we can see clearly from the IFMIS, that is the government system, that so much money is paid to individuals or companies. And that money, we don't see the taxes coming in. So that's a leakage. Just by deactivating and ensuring that we actually get this person declaring their tax and paying. We have also come up with other systems of collecting revenue, like you've heard of the withholding systems. Like, for example, the withholding VAT system is a way of trying to curb that channel where taxes is lost. So that when a supply is done and a payment is being made, at that point there is a certain amount of tax that is withheld that will be able to help KRA know that this tax was paid to so and so. And let's say for VAT, 6% is withheld. It's paid by the withholding appointed agents. And the taxpayer now, we have the contacts and everything, and we're able to reach that taxpayer or whoever it is to pay us the balance. So in that way, we know where the money is and we follow it. We also have been following up, especially the counties. You are aware that the government is the most consumer of the services that are supplied. And we have realized that much money is paid out, but we have not reached all of it. So we are going to the counties actually to find out whom did you give these jobs? Whom did you pay this money? And since the information is there, we follow that person. And in case we are not able to get that person, then the county pays us that money. So we have that way. We are enforcing payment. But before we get to enforcement, because our enforcement can go to levels that are not quite comfortable, where we even want to sell your property. I'm sure you've seen all this. We want to talk and tell the Kenyan taxpayer, please come forward. Pay your taxes. Let's not get into those enforcement measures because the KRA has the powers and we can do so. So we are doing the best we can to seal those loopholes, and of course dealing with the tax laws to seal the loopholes by amending the tax laws. That is also happening. And of course that's not just KRA, it's even Treasury, and it's all of us.
But a number of people have mentioned really how KRA would, after several months, decide to raid a certain institution and maybe ask backdated bills, backdated taxes, and say, you know, this could have been avoided because these people, to an extent, were paying their taxes, but maybe there were a few problems here and there that you did not tell us about. Maybe in terms of maybe paying up a number of taxes, because there's a variety of taxes that somebody is supposed to pay when they're running a company. So how has that been avoided, or how do you intend to avoid that going forward?
I was happy when I was sitting here. I saw that our bus, the mobile bus, service bus, is already out there. That's one way we use to sensitize taxpayers. Even my being here is a way of sensitizing the taxpayer. So what we are saying is that we are enhancing the information that we give to our taxpayers so that they know their tax rights, their tax obligations. And we keep communicating, and especially through iTax. We have a way of communicating through SMSs, through emails, and every other mode, just to tell the taxpayer, are you aware that you are not current? We have some taxpayers that are filing nil returns, yet when we check on the other side of iTax, where they transacted, we see much business, and I think I've talked about that. What we are doing is we go to where they supplied, and we get the information. Then we talk to this taxpayer, we can see your returns are saying 0, but we can see a lot of transactions between this company and the other. So sensitization is number 1. The rest is one-on-one. We keep talking. But before we really hit on a taxpayer, we've done due diligence to ensure that whatever is outstanding out there is not intended. It's either an error, and where it's an error, just like I had said, KRA even refunds any tax that is paid in error. So that is what our taxpayers need to know, and maybe get closer to us, talk to us. Do not sit there until things are getting bad. Yeah, I would encourage that kind of engagement.
Maybe then these campaigns and sensitization that you're running,
yes.
Are you in a way reaching out to the informal sector? Because a number of economists have mentioned over time that we are not meeting our revenue targets because we are not taxing the informal sector. And informal sector is one of the leading job employers in the country. That
true.
is where a lot of people are going.
Yes, yes, yes.
So are you reaching out to the informal sector in terms of maybe campaigns and telling them by paying your taxes, you're enabling yourself an environment to operate and do business?
That is true, and we've done that through even the radio FMs, the vernacular radios, just to reach the mwananchi. We call them Wanjiko, yeah? To reach them where they are and where they are doing business. So we have done that, and we are also looking into changing the law to have a tax system that favors this Juakari taxpayer. So currently what is there is the present act which they are expected to comply with. So what we are doing is just to show them where they should come in. But you're aware we have a tax we call turnover tax. That is for small business persons, just to pay us 3% of their gross turnover on on monthly basis. That was brought up for small taxpayers. What we have also brought up, the MRI, we call it monthly rental income, is to address also the small business traders. So for this kind, we are saying they don't have to spend so much time doing books and keeping records. They simply know how much did they sell in a day. Give us 3%. But of course, we are also looking into all those laws and come up with a tax that will favor that small person.
Actually, a viewer has sent us a question saying that when it takes you back to the penalties that you are seeking, they're saying, why penalize the employee when the employer fails to remit their taxes? Why don't you then ask the employer who collects and remits the taxes? Someone is asking, are you asking the employee to act as a tax agent?
I had actually said earlier that we don't penalize the employee. But the penalty is pegged on the employer because that is his or her obligation.
But the taxes are deducted from me.
Yes, what we are saying, the tax is deducted from you, it's remitted. What we leave for the employees could be paperwork to help us reconcile what was deducted. Was it actually paid? And as I had said, some actually employers have deducted money and not remitted. And the reason why we want the employer, before we actually give you the offset, because what employee is doing by filing is to tell me or to tell KRA this much was paid throughout the year. This is what I earned, this is what I was paid. And the result is 0. So before we say yes, we received what was paid, we want to check with the employer's account. So sometimes we check the employer's account and find that they never paid. So we'll not go to the employee to charge the penalty, we'll go to the employer. So for me, the employee is simple documentation to actually prove that the payment was done.
Maybe then, conversation, you're in senior management, you should be able to understand a few of what are the plans going forward, maybe the Kenya Revenue Authority has, because you'd remember that your last achievement really remains the iTax and formulation of iTax. How do you intend going forward to come up with more innovative ideas to bring more people to the tax bracket, to seal the loopholes, so that we can, of course, revamp our taxation and tax collection?
Okay, that also may touch on policy, because you may have heard many say that our tax rates are high, but having done research, actually Kenya tax rates are lower, even looking at the East African community. But what I'm driving at is that if every Kenyan was to take their responsibility and pay their fair share of their tax, the tax rates could go down. And if the tax rates go down, then it means the burden is on so many shoulders. That means the load is shared. So that is one of the things, but it's until many Kenyans also own up, because paying tax is also an individual. It's almost like a conviction as an individual. Many times we ask, like, if you are paid or you are payee today, would you actually take the pay percentage faithfully to KRA? And for many, they say no. So if we got the percentage saying, yes, I'll faithfully pay my taxes, honestly, we would be so far as a nation, and the tax rates would go down, and also enable many to come in. And as I had said also, we are also establishing other little or low taxes for other cadres. Like you've seen many borders and the ones who call the Juakari, and truly they work under hard conditions, but for them to enjoy the services, they need also to bring in some revenue. But if it is reasonable enough, I'm sure they would also pay and faithfully be counted as a Kenyan.
Every year, the National Treasury is coming up with a certain tax target that they're giving KRA. For the past 5 to 6 years, the taxman has not met the targets. I understand you might not be entirely in a position to comment on this, but you have an understanding of policy. You have an understanding of maybe where the loopholes are. Now, through the supplementary budget that was tabled the other day, the president is asking almost 260 billion extra from the taxman, and if this is to be shouldered by the taxpayer.
Yes.
How do we then meet the targets without hurting the common mwananchi?
It's the same thing we are saying, the mwananchi, because it's not all Wajiko that pays their fair share. There are those that maybe they are still out there, and as I said, there are many ways that we are doing it to get such, like for example, linking the systems, the government systems with the KRA system. And one major leap is the linking of the IFMI system with iTax, and that has enabled us to get quite a number of taxpayers who have been failing to pay the right tax. Actually, some not paying anything. So there are many things we are doing, and we believe that the target can be hit. But again, it's not just for KRA, it's for each Kenyan. What is your contribution to this target that we want to bring? So my call again is to each Kenyan. As we facilitate you to pay your taxes, kindly come forth, pay the fair share. We are also trying to link with other government agencies like NSSF, NHF, and all that will help us see where there are leakages and also try to tap that revenue. So we are doing a lot, but as you are aware, some government also institutions, including the county governments, we are working with them so that we exchange data, we exchange information and see who is it that is not contributing. And we shall get there, I believe.
We shall get there, of course, hoping. everyone files their returns in time. That is Judy Njagi, who's the Chief Manager of the Taxpayers Services for the Kenya Revenue Authority, helping us to understand a bit about taxation. Thank you so much for joining us.